I'm gonna be going over the literature review section guidelines. So basically, I want you to remember that each of these sections is part of your larger research project. So you're going to write the literature review on the same topic that you wrote your synthesis on. So just to be clear, this is all on the same topic. They are all different sections of the same research project that you're going to put together into a research paper. Now, this section is a little bit longer than your other sections. Your other sections are about 500 words minimum. This one is going to be a little longer, 750 words minimum, and that's because you're going over all of your sources. So you're probably going to find that you're going over 750 words on this even. So, don't worry about going over on page counts on any of these sections. If you go over, that's perfectly fine. There's not really a limit to how much you can go over. Some people end up writing, 3 pages, which is well over, what you need for each of these. Some people write, 4 pages or so on the literature review. So, it's not a big deal. The more you write, the more material you have for your research paper when it comes to that. So don't worry about that. But yeah, so and you don't need to worry about getting to that 750 words on your rough draft. Your rough draft can be just sort of an outline, or it can be sort of a very, very rough draft. Maybe you have like a part of a draft and then the rest is just outlined. All I'm caring about when I say rough draft is that you have words on a page. If you have words on a page that people can look at and give you feedback on, then you're good. Okay? So, the rough draft is going to be due November 1st. That is next Wednesday. The day after, or a couple days after, you're going to be doing a peer workshop on that. So just to let you know. There's also another project that's attached to this, which is the thematic source outline, which I'll go over later. So when you go to turn in your literature review rough draft, you're going to go to online peer reviews, and it's going to be literature review section rough draft, and you'll just attach the link in a new thread with your name on it. And then that'll give people the chance to look it over and give you feedback. All right. So the paper should be 12-point Times New Roman font, double-spaced, 1-inch margins. Don't mess with your margins. It should be an MLA format, and it should have an MLA Works Cited page, as well as, citing the sources properly in the text. And again, since this isn't since this is just a section of your research paper, you don't need an introduction or conclusion. Now, for this one, you're going to have 7 sources minimum. That's all of your sources that you're going to use for the paper. Now, if you decide later that you want to change the sources that you use, you're not locked into those 7. You can, of course, add sources up to 10. But, you can also take sources out if you don't feel like they fit. You're not locked into any sources that you choose for the literature review, just as long as you keep your information updated within your documents. Okay? So, basically, the literature review is meant to sum up the research you've done. It needs to include all of your research, so if you eliminate or add sources, you have to reflect those in the literature review. And basically, since you're putting all your sources together, you're kind of packing them all in, okay? And so it needs to be like a synthesis, but of all your sources. So, like we did with the synthesis essay, where you have, multiple sources represented in each paragraph, this also does that as well. So, a literature review does the following: it introduces your sources. So, especially the sources that you're going to use a lot, you want to take time to introduce. It shows the current conversation that is currently happening on your topic. So, it's basically to say, like, here's what people are saying about this topic before you go into what you're going to say, okay? It summarizes each of your sources, so it talks about what your sources are about, and it illustrates the connections and even the disconnections between your sources. So you might say, like, all of these sources are saying this, and then on this topic, there's these two sources who are saying slightly different things, but, here's the way they connect, here's where they disagree. And on this topic, I have one source that says this and another source that says this, that, here's where I fall, within that. So, and then it also indicates what's missing from current research. So if there's a really big hole, a really big gap in the research, something that, you can't find a whole lot of academic research on, then it's worth noting. You don't have to talk about that. Like, don't add it in if it doesn't fit. But, so don't like have a section of your research or of your literature review that says, like, there's no currently missing research from for my subject. If there's not really a gap, you don't have to mention that. But if there is a glaring gap, if there's something that really should be talked about and isn't, then that's worth noting. And finally, it creates a foundation of research from which you can build your argument. So you have this foundation that you can then build upon with your own argument. Now, I'm not asking for a simple summary paragraph summary of each source. So you may have been asked in the past to do what's called an annotated bibliography, where you have a citation for a source, and then underneath you have a paragraph that summarizes it, and then you have your citation for your next source, and then a paragraph summarizing that source. That's not what I'm asking for. A literature review, instead of just summarizing each of your sources, talks about your research as a whole, as opposed to just talking about each source. It's not worth talking about each source individually. It is worth talking about your research as a whole and what they have to say collectively. So, part of this, again, is to show the connections between your sources. And if you're just summarizing each source in its own paragraph, you're not really doing that. So, you want to, instead of organizing by source, you want to organize your paragraphs thematically. So, each paragraph will have a theme, in other words, an idea within your argument. And for that theme, you will write about what 2 to 4 of your sources have to say about that theme. Use the thematic source outline to organize information before you start writing, so that you can sort of go through and look at, okay, here's the sort of major themes that are showing up in these sources, and then here's the sources that talk about that theme, and then you'll know sort of where to pull your research from. So let me show you what that looks like. So this is under activities. So if you go to activities in your content and you scroll down to thematic source outline, I have 2 templates for you. If you prefer Google Sheets, you can use the Google Sheets template. If you prefer the Microsoft Excel, then you can, use the Microsoft Excel template. And I'll show you. So you open it up and just click, if you are using the Google Sheets, you'll click File, Make a Copy. And then if you're using a Microsoft Excel book, you're going to hit File, Save As, and download a copy. That should work out. If it doesn't, you can always just, if you hit Control A, it should highlight everything. Or if you're using, okay, so you got to click outside of the table, sorry, and you hit Control A, or maybe not, I don't know. Anyway, if you click over here on this button, it should highlight everything, or you can just sort of drag to highlight everything and then copy paste into your own Excel book. Let me know if that doesn't work. I can sort of maybe troubleshoot. But yeah, so basically the thematic source outline just helps you to identify the major themes that are happening within, your topic, and looking at, okay, which of your sources, so you're writing down the titles of your sources here. This is an example. Your outline is down here, so you can just write the titles of your sources here, and then the themes up top, okay? And then within each one, write down, if it deals with that theme, where does it deal with it? Where's the quote that you would pull, or the quote that you would paraphrase? So you don't have to, if it doesn't cover that, just leave it. If one of your sources doesn't cover theme 2, then leave it blank. You're just looking for sources that do cover it and where they cover it. So it's basically a way of focusing your reading of your sources on the themes that you want to cover. You can either come up with the themes first, or read your sources and then come up with your themes based on what you see. And that can also, help you to find sources as well. If you kind of identify which themes you want to sort of talk about, then you can look for sources that cover that theme, to make sure that you cover everything that you want to cover. Just basically, it's an outline. And then each theme, so each column would be its own paragraph. So paragraph 1 would be about privacy, and you would talk about what these 4 sources have to say about privacy. Your second paragraph will be about laws. You don't have to go in terms of like this. You can rearrange them as needed, but this should help you get started on organizing that, because I know it can be very difficult to organize for a literature review, so that tool should help you quite a bit with that. And then, so like I said, the rough draft is due on November 1st. The final draft is due the next Tuesday in class, November 7th. And the thematic source outline you can do as you go, so that's not due till Friday the 3rd of November. So yeah, just let me know if you have any questions or concerns about this, and I will be happy to answer any questions that you might have. So I will see you guys in class. Thanks.